What is going on, guys? Welcome back. King Wabi and I are here bringing you guys another fire episode. Before we get started, like, comment, subscribe. As always, Wabi and I do have a higher time frame belief that the markets are closer to a bottom than not. That means that we need to be dialing into the markets. Wabi, brother, how has your day been, man? What have you been seeing over this last week? We do have stable chain popping off a little bit, a little bit of activity going on there. Some runners on Robinhood chain with pawns. And what do you like that's shaping up in the ecosystems right now, being either one of those? And what is getting you kind of excited? What are you watching out for? What's changed over the last week, brother?
Oh, dude, honestly, all the stuff that we've been covering on Robinhood chain, it's all come to pass, man. Pretty much almost any asset that you've seen here on the channel has gone on to make higher highs. We covered Cash Cat on our first video about 2 weeks ago. That did like well over 100%. Of course, it's pulled back a bit. Again, these are all chain altcoins. You have to expect volatility to the downside just as you do the upside. This thing went from 0 to almost 300 mil in a couple of days. Shout out to the Because of Bitcoin Discord. I'm not sure if we're running a sale, but if we are, use the code down below. Whatever it is, Z, Ed, do your magic, get yourself a discount. Shout out to all of our new members. We also talked about pawns, and that ended up becoming the leading, launchpad for Robinhood, and all their fees are directed exactly towards the exact same thing that Hyperliquid is doing, which is buybacks, burns, supporting their own ecosystem, things like that. And we are starting to see some other stuff on Robinhood chain pop off, like long.xyz. It's basically, as Vlad Tenev wanted, combination of memes and also RWAs. So long.xyz is a platform where they take tokenized on-chain liquidity for equities and they pair it with their own native meme. And as the meme goes up, all of those fees go toward directing that on-chain asset. And Robinhood does actually facilitate that business, just as trade.xyz does on Hyperliquid. And so there is a potential where you're going to be seeing a lot of stocks in the equity markets actually gap up, as we saw earlier this year with things like Micron, SanDisk, and even some pre-IPO names like Anthropic and OpenAI. You're actually able to trade those names. And anytime the equity markets were closed on weekends and these tickers gapped up on chain, that ended up being very reflexive towards the actual on-chain stock, right? Like the actual chain is facilitating RWAs, right? So this is happening in real time. Robinhood is probably going to at least $500 billion, in my opinion. I think it's going to flip Schwab. I think it's going to flip IKBR and their combined market caps, which is about 400 billion. It might seem crazy, but this is literally a company that's trying to facilitate asset trading of all kinds in the palm of your hand, decentralized, no restrictions, in the palm of your hand 24/7, taking away the friction between consumer and digital product, just as how Amazon destroyed the friction between consumer and physical product. On-chain gambling in the palm of your hands, and we've seen just how crazy on-chain can be, even in these conditions. So I'm excited, man. I'm really excited. If you would allow me, I would really like to pull up a quick chart here for the people to see, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So just go ahead and share your screen there. I'll pull it right on up. Just click that plus icon down at the bottom. There we are. And real quick, before you get cooking, Wabi, man, yesterday I was out at lunch with a colleague, and we were talking, or he was talking about how much of a pain in the butt it is to trade on Fidelity. He's like, dude, I have to click like 10 different buttons to set a stop loss. Like that. The old ways are over. You go on to Fidelity, you go on to Schwab, you go on to, TD Ameritrade or whatever it may be. It's like we're, stuck in 2005, bro. Like their software is literally like 2005. It's insane. It's lunacy, in my opinion. Robinhood's taking over. Obviously, as we see the generational rotation effects, yes, the rotation between generations happen. Where do you think that the newer generation is going to be operating, man? And we both know it's going to be Robinhood all day long. So you got stable pulled up there, bro. Give us a cook, give us some alpha. What's going on there?
Yeah, so I mean, you guys already know this guy, right? Paulo Arduino, the guy from Tether. He tweeted this out, and then this meme went from like 0 to 15 mil. It's on Stable, which is their native L1, and this is actually Tether's token for their L1. Their native gas token is actually Tether. It's not ERC20 Tether. It's actually like, I think it's called USDT and another symbol, something like that. I mean, not many places have the bridge open. There's not much liquidity within the bridge right now, similar to Robinhood. And what we saw with Robinhood is once cash got spiked above 50 mil, 80 mil, everyone saw that like the liquidity from the bridging pools was starting to dry up. So people weren't actually able to bridge like this. You had to wait a couple of hours. And once that money came into the chain, everything popped off, right? So we are now in an environment where you clearly see on-chain risk appetite, right? And I mean, if you want to see a token that could potentially do well, it would be something like a Stable, which actually looks like, I mean, if you want to compare it to really any other token, it would be the TRX chart. And if you zoom out on the TRX chart, this is basically like what everyone wants their altcoin to look like. A very long, slow series of higher lows and higher highs for multiple cycles, instead of having like a token go down 80% and then it just never comes back, right? Like with AVAX, for example. I mean, I always pick on the AVAX people because they're just a chain that just benefited from QE and ZERP. But this thing, I mean, you would think on-chain would be popping off here, but it really hasn't. It's only been like, I think 2 occasions where there's been some on-chain action. So we have Stable potentially having the probability of going towards the market cap of Tron. So Tron trades at like, I think it's within the top 10 actually. I think
it's top 10.
It trades like at 15 billion or something like that. So if you look at Stable, I think Stable has a market cap. I think it has an FDV of close to 10 billion. There is a lot of supply that's potentially going to be unlocked over the next few years. But I mean, right now they can push this thing really aggressively. So Circ market cap is just under $1 billion. FDV is a little bit above that, but if there's going to be another place to facilitate on-chain trading, then so be it. And I think it all goes back to what Robinhood has been doing, which is facilitating a new trench of individuals into the on-chain market. And as far as pawns, yeah, this thing hit a new all-time high after we covered it. So today's date is the 23rd, and we covered this on the 18th. So I mean, damn, dude, like this thing went up by like 200+%. And I mean, there are a ton of things that have been popping off, not just on Robinhood chain, but also on Solana. We saw that raccoon, which honestly, like I faded. I thought it was gonna top out like right here, and I saw it right here. I'm like, all right, just the usual on-chain runner on Sol, tops out at 20, and then just goes into oblivion. But nah, this thing actually hit almost 50. It went very viral. You had things like Minecraft and ESPN and NBA players talking about it. And I did say this to our Discord. I said, if anything, it would be like the punch the monkey run up that we saw on Solana, where earlier this year this was something that went pretty viral, and it hit a market cap of just under 60. So history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. Maybe it does end up doing something like
oh man, I was thinking that. I was gonna say Moodang or Peanut.
Like Moodang, right? And Moodang went to, I think, almost $1 billion, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe at least
I think it was like 200 and something mil.
Yeah, I think that there were no. This thing went to almost $1 billion, man.
Oh wow, yeah,
it went to 800 mil. Then you had Chill Guy at the same time as well. So on-chain is kicking off, and as we said a couple of weeks ago, usually going into bear market lows, and we start to consolidate, we do start to see a lot of things pop off on chain, right? Like We saw Bonk, for example, as we've been saying here on these videos for a while. We saw Pepe as well. And if you guys were active during that time, after Bonk went on a massive run, we saw things like Rollbit going nuts. We saw things on Arbitrum and Optimism going nuts. After Pepe launched, we saw a plethora of on-chain action happening throughout the summertime. And so I have this saying, history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. And even during the bear market lows before that in 2019, we had things like Matic coming out into the market. I think Tron did pretty well the first half of 2019. And what else was popping off? Chainlink did like a 25x or whatever.
Chainlink was insane.
And so during that time period where the market kind of bases out, people are like, no, we have to tap the untapped liquidity and the FEG and all that stuff. And it's like, dude, the only FEG that you need are some Fig Newtons so you can be compliant within the market. Because one thing that people really love to do in crypto is they really want to force the market that they want, and they don't want to comply with the market that they have. So if you've been in the market and you decided to fade Cash Cat and you did not see the opportunities that came after that, you're just becoming really complacent and you're doing yourself a disservice. And for the individuals that say, oh, the meme super cycle is indicative that the market hasn't bottomed out yet, then that tells me that, all right, did you also fade Pepe? And the cycle before that, when people would look at things like Chainlink, they would say, why would any institutional development come into crypto? Don't you know ICOs are gone? It's done for. Crypto is done for. And again, the market has a way of weeding a lot of people out, and it's usually through the things that you least expect. That's what I have to say.
Yeah. And to your point, Wabi, as well, just to add on to that, there's a lot of kind of cohort, we'll say bandwagon enjoyers right now that are, like, oh, it was insane how fast people flipped from Robinhood Chain to stable chain. And, Robinhood Chain is just, another, just another one of those to be forgotten. And they often forget that Robinhood has 27 million users. It actually is a little bit more than that. And we discussed this in the first video, but the new kind of like frictionless conjoining or frictionless conjoinment between on-chain flows and equity flows, or more so equity flows and on-chain flows, where that one-stop shop, let's say only 10% of those users come over to on-chain. That's 2.7 million new on-chain participants that the market did not have before, and ones that have probably largely been benefiting from the bull market that has been going on in equities across the board. We've been seeing obviously the memory trade continuing to pop off, or the memory trade popped off rather heavily. Most recently it's been healthcare, but the buyback system with the fees where they're buying the stock back in this conjoinment of RWAs and meme coins and on chain, it's significant, right? It's significant. And I do believe that now that we have that, that marriage, if equities do pop off, or when equities do pop off, because it's only a matter of time, whether it's tomorrow or whether it's 5 months from now, with the integration of RWAs into these memes, that just creates more positive liquidity conditions for on-chain, right? You're getting this compounding snowball effect, or this flywheel, that's really quite smart. It's really, really, really quite smart what they're doing, specifically what Wabi has pulled up here with long.xyz. And we look at Robinhood Chain as well, just the metrics on Dune, like their chain asset landscape, right? Their total asset market cap has gone up by 50% since Wabi and I's last video. It's continuing to grow, right? The protocol's TVL is continuing to grow.
Do you want to pull up something?
Sure. Yeah, I'll pull something up here real quick, just to show the audience, because these are important metrics that if you want to really be viewing or be paying attention to how something is behaving within a bear market period, or, period of pullback, it's very, 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 very important that we look at the underlying kind of metrics that are going on behind this, right? So what is occurring is we're continuing to see growth. Even though, yes, you're seeing pullbacks across the board on quite a few of these names, it doesn't mean that it's, buried forever. We're still seeing inflows. We're still seeing, attention rotate to Robinhood chain as these metrics continue to grow. And like Wabi kind of mentioned, these are things that are very, very, very important, because we do see the initial, interest wave that happens. This is, it's typical psychological behavior where you have the initial interest wave. And then following that initial interest wave, right, you generally get a reaccumulation period. And that reaccumulation period, it's similar to what, I kind of what I saw on Kita. So if I pull up Kita here and we go back and we look at, the initial kind of move that I had off the lows, right? We zoom in where Kita had the initial move off the lows, and this is the initial interest wave right here, right? You had to drive higher, and then during this reaccumulation period,
that was torching a lot of people.
Yeah, it was torching a lot of people, and a lot of people just got completely taken out of the trade. But really, it was just trading in between. It was trading in like a 50% range, up and down, and people just couldn't handle it. But during these reaccumulation periods, you're seeing a lot of new money come in. And especially if it's concentrating and you have a strong narrative that's lining up in cohort with the broader market narrative within crypto, that ticker is going to absolutely send. Like we saw the same thing with Pepe in 2023 going into 2024. Very, very, very similar, just, different in how it looks, but contextually it's the same thing. Like view this as Pepe. Pepe had its first initial leg up, then you saw the sell-off at base out in 2023, reaccumulation. We talked about that new money coming in that comes into the beginning of a cycle, right? The dam and the reservoir kind of filling up. And then when those new narratives pop up, if whatever ticker it may be, whether that may be pawns right now, whether that may be something over on stable, whatever that may be, it then leads to significant runners, and something that I believe everybody should be largely paying attention to right now, because Kita did this during a quote unquote, like bear market period of 2025, right? Where it was consolidating when Bitcoin was going on to make new lows, right? Bitcoin had fallen from 108K all the way down to 74 during the tariff debacle. And it was, it was really treacherous time within the market. But that was more so a mid-cycle correction. And the thing about mid-cycle corrections versus the accumulation periods coming out of bear markets is that the liquidity or the accumulation that occurs coming out of bear markets is much, much, much larger, right? The reservoir fills up so much more because the accumulation period generally lasts a little bit longer. And sure, if we range here, have a broadening range in Bitcoin into the end of the year, that gives even more time for altcoins to really put in strong bases, pay attention to what survives, and whatever survives is a no-brainer bid, in my opinion, once we start to break back towards bullish market structure for Bitcoin, right? Because that's really the signal for on-chain, is once we see Bitcoin breaking out to new highs, it's like, okay, we need to start paying attention. That's generally when total 3 really starts to pop off to the upside. So I am paying very close attention to Robinhood chain. The thesis has not changed, in my opinion, right? Like Wabi had said, like they're making this seamless, they're making it easy. It's the future of speculation for an entire generation, what they're incorporating and how they've incorporated it thus far. I mean, they drove the GME and AMC narrative, right? One of the largest retail events in the history of the stock market, if not the largest retail event in the history of the stock market. And they've been spot on with their thesis for the better part of, or co-aligning themselves for the better part of the last, 2-3 years, right? I mean, they had to recover a little bit post GMC because of delisting, but they've done a fantastic job of, correcting the ship and correcting where the direction of it is headed. And they understand how to co-align themselves with retail in a really, 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 really strong way. And because of that, again, like, do we think that a chain that's going to be popping off with you know um, the head of it doesn't want anything to do with a certain ticker, even though he makes it as PFP? Do we think that's going to do well? When really that should have been an event for Coinbase where they should have embraced that. They should have been like, yeah, we want people to know that, like, we are pushing things, right? We want people to know that we are, driving tickers higher. We want to bring meaningful liquidity on chain. That chart is atrocious. And a lot of the Robinhood charts right now look very, very, very similar to Sol charts back, pre AI summer. I don't know if you remember, well, I know you remember Wabi, but Godius Maximus, right?
Oh yeah, yeah,
Where, it went up, 300, 400%. And then we saw a massive consolidation period where it went down, I believe, 70%. And then it had another significant leg up. And a lot of these Robinhood charts, in my opinion, are likely going to be doing something very, very, very similar. Where, yes, you're going to go through pretty substantial drawdown periods. You are going to go through pretty substantial. I think it's because we only have the radium chart, but instead of the true, yeah, during those drawdown periods on the way up, where those were hellacious, but if you were able to survive them, ultimately speaking, they led to strong legs up, which led the market.
550 mil all the way down to 150, and then 2 days later it makes an all-time high.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, look at these corrections, man. 900 mil down to like 400 mil, and then that was the final leg.
Right? Yeah, up to 1.3 bill, yeah. Right? Eclipsed the 10-figure mark, which was huge. That's significant. And you got to ask yourself, like, if a chain can produce runners in a bear market period for Bitcoin, because Bitcoin isn't a bear market period. It just is. Like, Wabi and I believe that we're basing out right now, but this is still, quote unquote, the bear market period. And if a chain can produce, like I said, on-chain runners during this period, what do you think is going to happen when positive liquidity conditions come back? It's going to be banana mode.
And you want to know what's crazy, guys? You want to know what's crazy? Something that people haven't really been paying attention to, right? So last cycle, last bear market cycle, people were saying, oh, there's no way that Bitcoin is going to go below last cycle's all-time high. There's just no way. There's no way at all. Absolutely not. And what happened was we did, not just once, but twice. We gapped down by, call it, so we peaked at 20,000. We drew down by about 25% below the previous all-time high, right? So if the all-time high for the bull market before that, and if we're repeating the same thing, which perhaps we are, 25% off of 70,000 would be what, like 56K, 57? Where did we bottom out? 57 and change. So, don't hate the messenger, man. Don't hate the messenger.
Sometimes it's just that easy. Sometimes it is just that easy.
I think the Max Payne scenario, honestly, is like Bitcoin pops above 100K and then gaps down to like 80 and then does nothing for like 8 months.
Yeah.
Does nothing for like 6 to 8 months and then goes off and goes crazy, man. At least that's kind of like my dubious speculation, because I mean there's no other big players, dude. Sailor sold the bottom, and I don't know what a better way to cement the bottom, dude. Just how the GAC had to sell the lows, and it's not like all this stuff has affected the way people move in markets, right? Like, you could have just been buying hyperliquid and made an absolute killing, and more recently with things like lighter. So
yeah,
that's kind of
and the people too that on the leg up, like if we leg up, whether even if it's into like the mid 80s, right, and then we consolidate from there, whether it's from the mid 80s or to 100, and they miss that move, I mean, they are going to be seething, and then they're going to be buying into that leg higher, and they're, like you said, probably going to have to sit through a long consolidation period to realize any appreciation in any asset that they buy, or not in any asset, but in, in probably the majority of majors, being like Bitcoin, ETH. Um, I don't know if I consider Sol a major anymore personally, but like even like a hyper liquid, and because of that, it's really, diligent when we talk about capitulation at the bottom, right? We talk about capitulation, sailor selling. Is that not, that is literally capitulation, if you ask me, right? That is capitulation at its finest. So yeah, Vlad, they're posting your agent can trade now. We also had virtuals come out and say agentic season. I would expect a new season to come out for virtuals here sooner rather than later, if history is any indication. Usually, when Virtuals launches a new season, we do see things pop off, like we saw on Base, where each time they had a new season, um, they've had 2 seasons, both were on Base. Things did really, really, really well on chain, and they create really compelling flywheels for the market or for on chain conditions. So, I would expect for something very similar to happen from Virtuals. They've been talking about gearing up for another season, and what better than to be doing it on Robinhood chain with a company and a place or sector within the market that they've been interacting with a lot on their personal accounts. So just looking like what Wabi had pulled up there with Wood, that's something quite a few people have been talking about. In the past, has had a lot of big runners. I mean, you talk AIXBT, you want to talk about Tibber, you want to talk about Game, like all 9-figure runners, right? All of those were 9-figure runners at one point or another. So bring the flywheel, positive liquidity conditions with Bitcoin and majors going up, with equities doing well now that we have the on-chain positively affected by equity flows. You have a trifecta. I mean, you literally have a trifecta.
Yeah, I mean, look at these corrections that people experience on Robinhood, man. It's not like you can just write a token and it's just going to be up only forever, right? Like you see something like Index, which I mean, we showed Index literally like before this happened, man.
It was right before it.
It was insane. And what happened? Vlad followed their Twitter account, went up like 4x. And usually after you see a massive parabolic move like this, after a slow grind up, you usually see a lot of holders escape, and it tests people's conviction. And you're talking about like an 80% type of correction. And it reminds me a lot of like what we saw with some tickers during the AI season, actually, no, I think Forest would be a better example, because this used to be quote unquote GOAT beta.
Forgot about that.
Yeah, Forest. That was something else, brother. But hold on, y'all. Let me just pull up the daily. I think that'd be a lot better. But yeah, I mean, you look at these corrections, guys. Like, this is very common for on-chain. It's basically like the options market, but after you lose most of your money on paper, you make it back. So look at this. This thing went to 30 mil, and then 30 mil back down to 90% correct. and then a few days later, you
did a 10x,
right? And then after that, like a 70% correction, and then after that, a clean like 10x, 12x. So I'm just saying, like, these on-chain corrections, they're always going to happen. They're always going to happen. Even on the way where Bitcoin is making all-time highs and shit like that, it's just going to happen, guys. It's just going to happen. So on-chain, you really want to have most of your exposure on the alpha. So that would be things like Hoodstock, right? If you think Hood is going to do well on chain, then I mean, you would expect Hood to break into price discovery in the next few months. That's when Robinhood chain is going to produce your $1 billion runner, guys. When Hood is in price discovery, that is when, mark my words, within the month, within the first 30 days, you will see a $1 billion runner on Robinhood chain. At least 30 to 100 days is my estimate. I want to give it some wiggle room within the first 30 to 100 days. Similar to Bitcoin, if Bitcoin gets into price discovery, and I do think market dynamics have changed, right? I don't think you're going to make these marginal highs and then dip, marginal highs and then dip, marginal high dip, marginal high dip. I think this whole structure is completely dead. I think it's just gone. 1010 destroyed all those people who used to cause this price action. Similar to FTX, right? If you guys remember during the last bull market, look at all this shit. This was straight up in a straight line. That's FTX, man. That's FTX. And then you have these nasty liquidations. That didn't really happen in the last bull market, did it? It was more slow and methodical, right? It was more slow and methodical, these massive ranges. And then people want to say 2017 was straight up in a straight line. No, it wasn't. I don't know what people are talking about. It was slow grind. Then you dip for a couple of weeks, slow grind, dip for a couple of weeks. It was literally a series of higher highs and higher lows. That was 2017. Now, 2021 was literally up only. It was literally up only, right? And then the next bull market was just gap up, consolidate, gap up, consolidate, gap up, consolidate, consolidate. It was a real grinder. It was a grinding bull market. And when Bitcoin does all this stuff, most alts get hammered and you'd have to go on chain. So my dubious speculation is that it would probably mimic more of 2017, in my opinion. I think it was just going to be a slow grind up followed by multi-week pullbacks instead of having to wait for so long.
Well, with that being said, let's wrap it up there. It's a good spot. Wabi, thank you for coming on, brother. Hope you guys enjoyed the cook, man. We went deep into the trenches for you guys. Give you guys some real alpha on the markets, our insight for Robinhood chain, all the tickers, right? Historical indications of what we believe or how we believe things are going to be trading moving forward. With that being said, guys, leave a comment, like, subscribe. Check out Wabi and I's X's profile. Check out the Because Bitcoin profiles. We do have a flagship product called TraderX. If you guys like trading automation, give that a look. We are going to be doing some content for you guys to make it easy to set up, easy to understand. We also have BB Terminal. If you are doing anything on chain and you like Deck Screener, check out BB Terminal, guys. We did do some nice upgrades to that recently. So with that being said, enjoy your weekend and we will see you guys later. Peace out.
There you guys.